It is the 14th of August of the year 1183, and in the Japanese capital of Heiankyo, a samurai is riding through the streets carrying an urgent message. The warrior, Shigesada, is a veteran of many battles. Almost 30 years ago, he achieved eternal fame as the man who finally captured the giant Genji warrior Tamatomo, a fierce samurai whose bow arm was a foot longer than his arrow arm, which made him the most devastating archer Japan has ever known. Shigesada had managed to capture the giant after months of pursuit and had consigned him in a cage to Devil's Island. Now, Shigesada, in his 60s, is one of the most trusted samurais serving the nation's most powerful clan, the Heikei, and he is heading to their stronghold in the capital, Rokuhara. As his horse gallops through the streets of the capital, Shigesada sees a city in panic. Hundreds of people are hastily packing their goods, and lines of ox-pulled carriages line the roads of Heian. As he passes, he hears fragments of worried conversations. "Have you heard? The Heikei have been defeated. The retired emperor has fled. The Genji are coming. Kiso Yoshinaka will burn down the city. He's leading an army of demons. They'll destroy us all." Shigesada grimaces as he passes by the city's people, for he knows their fears are well-founded. The Genji general, known as Master of the Eastern Mountain, Kiso Yoshinaka, has just attained a seemingly impossible victory at Kurikawa Pass over a vastly superior force led by the Heikei Lord Koremori, and now he is headed for the capital. After riding through the night, Shigesada arrives exhausted at Rokuhara in the early morning. He hammers at the door and is greeted by a nervous guard. "Let me through," says Shigesada. "Summon the Heikei Lords. I must convene with them. I have urgent news." What is your message?" says the guard. "My message? Yoshinaka is coming, you idiot! The city is under attack." In Rokuhara's main hall, a council of leading Heikei is convened. Shigesada enters the hall, where he sees a line of samurai lords, the most powerful men in the nation, the sons of the now deceased Heikei Lord Kiyomori. The one he notices first is the tallest, Tomomori, a fierce bearded warrior who wears armor even in the palace hall and has a persistent scowl of concern and a furrowed brow. Next to Tomomori is his younger brother, Shigehira, who recently led an attack on Nara that had left the ancient temples there a smouldering ruin. And next to him sits their nephew, Koremori, 24 years old, who has only just returned from his devastating defeat at the hands of Kiso Yoshinaka at Kurikawa Pass. Together, the brothers convey a mix of determination, arrogance, paranoia, and fear. Behind them, on a raised dais, sits the late Kiyomori's eldest surviving son, Munemori. Since their father's death, he has taken on the leadership of the Heikei clan, but is struggling to establish the command that his father once had. Beside him sits his sister, Tokuko, the Lady Kenremonin, the mother of the reigning emperor, Antoku, who is just 4 years old. Lord Munemori gestures to Shigesada, who bows to the assembled nobles and samurai. "My lord," Shigesada says, "we have reports that the Genji general, Kiso Yoshinaka, is bringing a sizable force and is now just 3 days from entering the capital." There is a murmur among the gathered nobles. "How sizable?" says Munemori. "Well, reports vary, but we estimate at least 50,000. Munemori is shocked. 50,000? And he's bringing them all into the city? Yes, it appears so. His forces from the mountains in Shinano have been joined by Genji from the inner provinces and from the south too, from Setsu and Kowachi. And that's not all. He has sent envoys to the monks of Mount Hie, and they too have pledged their support, so that's another 3,000. "Oh, great," grunts Tomomori. "So now we have the warrior monks against us." His brother, Shigehira, is scornful. "Pah! Those monks can never be trusted." "Ah," Tomomori snorts. "Well, we might still have their support, Shigehira, if you hadn't burned down the monks' temples at Nara." "That was under father's orders, and you know it," Shigehira snarls. Tomomori shrugs. "Yeah, well, whatever. We've been paying the price ever since, haven't we?" "Enough," snaps Munemori. He turns to his nephew. "Koremori, what say you? You faced Kiso's men at Kurikawa. What are our chances?" The young Heike looks down and mutters, I I don't know. Kiso Yoshinaka is not human. He has supernatural... Oh, come on, says Tomomori. He stuck some torches on the horns of bulls and it caused a rout among your soldiers. He's no more supernatural than I am. The young Koremori looks up furiously. You have no idea what he is like, what it was like. Koremori looks at his eldest uncle for support, fear in his eyes. Munimori sighs, then says, well, first we must send a message to the retired emperor. If Go Shirakawa declares Yoshinaka an outlaw, the people will not accept him. That's just the problem, says Shigasada, who has been quietly listening to the brothers feuding. What do you mean, says Munimori. The retired emperor. He's vanished. What? What do you mean, vanished? As I came to Rokuhara, I heard reports that he is no longer at his residence. Apparently, he has fled to Kurama, and from there he intends to go to Mount Hiei to join the monks and to support Kiso. What? Munimori is furious. That double-crossing traitorous coward, he's betrayed us all to the Genji? There is a sudden commotion among the clansmen in the hall. Tomomori, though, can't help chuckling. Well, that wily old man never did trust us after father put him in a cage at Fukuhara. That was a palace, not a cage, says Munimori. Well, brother, that's not how he saw it. Anyway, we don't need the retired emperor so long as we have the real one and the imperial treasures. Without those, he has no power. Munimori turns to his sister, the lady Kenrei Monin, who sits quietly to his side. Tokuko, what do you say? There is silence as the Heike brothers strain their ears to hear her words. We must protect the emperor above all. That is all that matters. We cannot let Yoshinaka near him. She looks Munimori in the eye. We cannot stay in the city. There is a loud murmur now, and Tomomori looks alarmed. Wait, Tokuko, I understand you want to protect your son, the emperor, but... He turns to Munimori. We cannot flee, brother. We have to stay and fight. It is my decision, Tomomori. Munimori stands and addresses the crowd. I have to consider what is best for the emperor and the Heike. Shigasada asks, What is your command, my lord? Munimori pauses, realizing that all eyes are on him. Give orders to evacuate. We are leaving the city. But before we do, we'll burn it to the ground. As news leaks out that the Heike are leaving, there is pandemonium in the city. The roads are soon clogged with citizens fleeing from what they believe to be a barbarian army heading from the east. It was Japan's equivalent of the Mongols arriving at the gates of Vienna. At the imperial palace, Munimori watches nervously as his sister, the lady Kenrei Monin, escorts the 4-year-old emperor Antoku into a palanquin. Behind them, another armoured carriage is loaded with the 3 imperial treasures, the sacred jewel, the sacred mirror, and the heavenly sword. 3 treasures that have been passed down through the imperial line over many centuries since the mythic founding of the nation, and without which the imperial throne succession has no legitimacy. Munimori grabs the leading member of the emperor's entourage. You have the seals? He asks. Yes, my lord. And the keys? Yes, everything. Then go! Leave the city by the fastest route. Don't hesitate. Now go, go, go! Munimori watches as the imperial procession heads down Suzaku Road, past masses of evacuees who, as they stand clear of the carriage, realize this is the closest they have ever been to their divine emperor. Across the city, Lord Munimori's nephew, Taira no Koremori, the young commander who had been defeated by Kiso in the mountains of Kurikawa, arrives home, where he is greeted by his wife, a young woman who is famed for her peach blossom face, and the 2 children she has borne him, an 8-year-old daughter and a son, Rokudai, who is now in his 10th year. All 3 plea with Koremori not to be left behind. Koremori tries to ignore their pleas. Look, the Heike are fleeing towards the west. I wish I could take you, but the enemy may be lying in wait for us. Take us with you, his wife begs. I must go alone. Look, if you hear that I have been killed, don't retire and become a nun. Marry someone else. Never mind who, just find someone to provide for you and the children. I can't imagine you'll have any trouble finding someone. He turns from her and is just about to leave when she clings to his sleeve with tears in her eyes. How can you leave me, here in the capital, with the Genji about to arrive? I have neither father nor mother. Where am I going to find a husband once you've gone off? Marry, you say, anyone you please. Oh, I could hate you for that. We promised to stay together right to the end, like dewdrops side by side in a meadow. That's what you said. So did you just make that all up, those sweet nothings of yours in the night? If this was about me, perhaps I could manage, but who, I ask, will provide for the children? What do you want me to do about them? You are cruel not to take us with you. Again, Koremori tries to wrestle free from her embrace. You think I'm heartless, but this is for your own sake. I'm about to set off for war, and I am not ready to take you. Once we settle on some far shore, I will send someone for you. With these words, he pulls away and dons his armour. Outside, he catches hold of his horse and is almost in the saddle when his children rush up to him and begin tugging at his armour, calling, "Father, where are you going? Take us with you. We want to go too." Koremori sighs. Ah, such are the ties that bind us to this world of sorrow. "Hey, Koremori, what are you doing?" He turns and sees his brothers at the gate. "The Imperial Guard must be long gone by now. We're running out of time." "I am coming," he calls. He turns to his children and says, "I am sorry," and heads out. The children cry out as he rides, and his wife calls, "Koremori, never in all our life together did I think you could be so callous." Even in the winds that blow, he can hear their cries as he flees, before he eventually joins thousands of others streaming from the capital. As he rides out through the city, he sees the first flames, for the Heike have now set fire to Rokuhara. The fire soon spreads, and the surrounding buildings, great mansions, commoners' houses, and wooden huts, are burned to the ground. As the tale of the Heike recounts, mansions where lived the greatest lords of the land, built with loving care at the cost of long labour, were simply gone, reduced in an instant to ash. For the Heike, that day was the start of a very long exodus. First, they made their way along the southern coast of Honshu, at first pausing at Fukuhara, present-day Kobe, the city that their former leader, Kiyomori, had founded, hoping to turn it into the nation's new capital. Instead, it had already become a ghost town. Realizing they were still too close to the capital and the Genji threat, the Heike uprooted again, set fire to Fukuhara, and continued their westward journey. At the southern tip of Honshu, they crossed over the narrow strait to Kyushu, the southern main island of Japan, eventually stopping at a place called Dasaibu, near modern-day Fukuoka. Here they planned to establish their new capital, but fortune turned against them once again. The Heike sought support from the people of a neighbouring province called Bungo, but the provincial governor, a man known as Bungo the Big Nose, apparently because of his enormous nose, sent a message from Heiankyo urging his people to reject the Heike. His message was addressed to Okata Koriyoshi, a formidable samurai who was believed to be descended 5 generations back from a serpent that was 150 foot long. The Heike sent envoys to negotiate with Koriyoshi, reminding him of the allegiance his people owed to the Heike. The envoys warned him that Yoritomo and Yoshinaka have convinced the ruffians of the east and north that their service will win them provinces and estates, and you believe them. But you would be making a great mistake to follow the orders of Bungo the Nose. Unfortunately for the Heike, the pragmatic Koriyoshi, seeing the way the wind was turning, did decide to follow the Big Nose's orders. The past is the past, now is now, he told his men. If that is all the Heike have to say, then we'll drive them out of Kyushu at once. Whether Koriyoshi really was the son of a serpent, he was certainly an effective battle warrior, because the Heike forces that Munamori sent to confront him were soon defeated, and Koriyoshi's 3,000 men swarmed them like clouds and mist. Then he gathered a total of 30,000 that threatened to assault Munamori's main forces, so Munamori, once again, was forced to order an evacuation. Now the Heike boarded small fishing boats amidst a raging storm and fled to northern Kyushu, to an area called Buzen, and from there sailed back to the main island of Honshu, where they once again sought a place of sanctuary. Now threatened from east and west, they continued to travel back along the coast, moving from town to town, fleeing with bloody feet, and eventually crossed over to the smallest of Japan's main islands, Shikoku, finally finding a place to settle, at least for now, a place named Yashima. There they built a rough board-roofed semblance of an imperial palace, too rough to house the by now exhausted infant emperor, so his ship became his dwelling, while the ministers, nobles and officials spent their days in reed-thatched huts, sharing their sleeping quarters with village fishermen. In the words of the tale of the Heike, yesterday, the Heike were wonder-working dragons dispensing rain from above the clouds. Today, they resembled fish out of water, offered for sale in a dried fish store. Fortune and misfortune both travel the same road. Glory and decline are but two sides of the same hand. And so it was that the Heike eked out their exile from the capital, keeping wary vigilance against Genji who could attack at any moment, constantly looking over their shoulder and seeing threats where, for now at least, they did not exist. White herons flocking in distant pines seemed to their eyes like the banners of Genji warriors. Wild geese calling far out to sea kept them wakeful, imagining armed warriors rowing in by night. It seemed that fortune, for now, had deserted the Heike. But if the Genji thought the Heike were finished, they were mistaken. The war was not over yet. While the Heike have been on the run, seeking sanctuary, the victorious Kiso Yoshinaka is very much enjoying his time in the capital. On the 17th of August, Kiso swept into the city just a few days after the Heike's hasty evacuation. He was accompanied by his uncle Yukie and tens of thousands of supporters, including more than 3,000 warrior monks from Mount Hiei. It was the first time since 1160 that a Genji army entered the capital in triumph. Its first priority was to put out the fires that the Heike had left, as up to 40,000 wooden huts and buildings had been destroyed. Some days later, though, Kiso is summoned to an audience with the retired emperor, Go Shirakawa, at his residence at Hojuji Palace. Seeing how the winds of fortune have changed decisively in favor of the Genji, the canny old emperor congratulates Kiso and names him Asahi Shogun, literally commander of the morning sun. Because the boy emperor Antoku is in the possession of the Heike, Go Shirakawa declares his intention to appoint a new emperor. With Yoshinaka's agreement, Go Shirakawa summons his grandsons, the emperor's brothers, still just infants. One of the younger grandsons immediately comes up to the old Go Shirakawa and sits on his lap, so the old emperor decides that this infant will be the new emperor. Although just 3 years old, in years to come, this boy will become a very important figure in Japan's history, an emperor known as Go Toba, but that is another story. So now, Kiso and Go Shirakawa have their own puppet emperor, but for this boy to be officially appointed, they first have to recover the 3 imperial treasures. And so Go Shirakawa commands Kiso to seek out the Heike, destroy them, and recover the imperial regalia. Before he sets out to take on the Heike, though, Kiso instead decides to pause and make the most of his unexpected position as the most powerful man in the capital. As someone who's lived his life in the mountains, Kiso doesn't have a clue about protocol and frequently makes what the tale of the Heike describe as many ridiculous incidents, as he is completely devoid of taste. More used to life on horseback, Kiso struggles to adjust to a lifestyle of being carried around by an ox-driven carriage. At one point he gets so frustrated by the slow progress, he gets out the back of the carriage and decides to walk. The nobles are shocked by such vulgar behaviour. "A gentleman boards a carriage from the rear and leaves by the front," they tell him. "What?" he says. "Just because it's a carriage, why do you have to go in one end and out the other?" Kiso also has a habit of referring to the nobles by nickname. When one of the officials is introduced to him as Lord Nekoma, he roars with laughter. "Nekoma?" Neko also having the meaning of cat in Japanese. Yes, sir. The gentleman is a senior noble known as the Nekoma Councillor. I believe that Nekoma is the place where he lives." "All right, bring him in," roars Kiso. "Lord Pussycat's turned up at the door. We'd better feed him something." All these trivial incidents and slights do not endear him to the imperial court or the Fujiwara nobles who, now that the Heike have left, have quickly started taking control of the government again. "Kiso's behaviour is boorish in the extreme," they complain, "as is his manner of speaking." But it isn't just his relations with the nobles that are wearing thin. The relations between Kiso Yoshinaka and the imperial court are about to go from bad to worse, as is his reputation among the citizens of the capital. Despite having achieved a reputation as a great general, Kiso discovers that waging war in the mountains against the Heike was very different from facing them at sea. After licking their wounds and establishing their new base at Yashima, the Heike have now started to regroup and launch attacks on the Genji forces along the coast of the inland sea. The Heike have for many years been a seafaring clan, and Lord Kiyomori's father had once been famous for his role in patrolling the inland sea, putting down pirates. So now the Heike's naval expertise proves very useful. Kiso eventually agrees to send detachments of his troops under the command of his uncle, Yukie, but the first exchanges along the coast end with defeats for Kiso's men, many of whom had never been in a boat before in their lives. One by one, led by brothers Tomomori and Shigehira, the Heike retake provinces along the coast, and at the battles of Mizushima and Murayama, the Heike gradually cleanse the shame from their old defeats. In the capital, the retired emperor now begins to wonder if he has made a mistake, making a pact with this barbarian from the north. He not only starts to doubt Kiso's effectiveness as a general, he also starts to question his ability to keep control of the capital. Kiso's men have lived all their life in the country, but now they have free reign over the largest city in Japan. At first, there are isolated cases of theft, but then avarice and greed become rampant. Kiso's men break into storehouses and take what is in them. They steal from travellers and strip them of their clothes. When the Heike held the city, people say, Lord Kiyomori was just an ominous sort of threat. No one ever stole all your clothes. Better the Heike than the Genji. Furious at the disorder in the city, Go Shirakawa sends a messenger to Kiso with instructions to curb his men's excesses, but Kiso is unable or unwilling to do anything about it. The emperor's message is brought to him by a police lieutenant, Tomoyasu, who, because he is so skillful on the Tsuzumi drum, is known as the Tsuzumi lieutenant. Kiso doesn't bother replying to the message and instead says, Hey, tell me, do they call you the Tsuzumi lieutenant because everyone beats you, or because you stuff your face until it stretches? The furious lieutenant is speechless and returns to the retired emperor. Yoshinaka is a fool, he says. At any moment he'll turn against the court. You'd better dispose of him before it's too late. Things come to a head on the 18th day of the 11th month. Kiso summons his deputy, Imai Kanehira, an older samurai who Kiso has known since childhood, and his comrade and lover, Tomoe Gozen, who is known as a warrior to match 1,000 men. Together they decide a response to the retired emperor's challenge. Kiso looks at Kanehira and Tomoe and says, You would have heard that the retired emperor sent a stuck-up police lieutenant to instruct me how to lead my men. Kanehira nods sadly. I did, my lord, and I heard you insulted him, and he has been bad-mouthing us ever since to the emperor. That lieutenant is out to get me, Kanehira. Anyway, now it seems the emperor has called on the fighting monks of Mount Hiei and Midera for support, and even some of the Genji of the inner provinces are saying they will shift allegiance from us to the retired emperor. Meanwhile, the old man's locked himself away at his palace at Hojuji where he thinks he is secure. Right, says Kanehira. This is deadly serious. Yes, Kiso agrees. So, what do you both advise? We cannot trust the retired emperor, Tomoe says. For all we know, he may already be in contact with Yoritomo. Kanehira interjects. How can you fight a sovereign? The people believe he is endowed with perfect virtue. Kiso snorts. That old man is a scheming coward. Yes, but the people don't know that. And Go Shirakawa will already have his minions feeding misinformation about you all over the city, so we won't be able to trust anyone. Kiso is getting impatient. So, what do you advise I do? Kanehira says, I suggest you take off your helmet, unstring your bow, and submit to him. Show some humility. That's all that's needed. It's just words. Kiso is furious. When I came out of the mountain of Shinano, I fought all the way from Mount Tonami to the ford at Itakura, facing many more men than I had at my disposal, and not once through any of that did I show my back to the enemy. Retired emperor he may be, sovereign in name and virtue, but no, I will not, even for him, doff my helmet, unstring my bow, and at his word submit. Kanehira holds his tongue as Kiso glares at him. Finally, Kiso turns to stare at his companion. Tomoe? Go Shirakawa will never support us, she says. He can't stand the idea of people from the countryside ruling his precious city, so we have to remove him. If we don't, he will side with Yoritomo, who will definitely bring his army down from Kamakura. If Yoritomo gets here, Go Shirakawa will convince him we are a threat, not an ally, and that will be the end of us. Kanehiro bows his head. My lord, I must urge caution. If we... Enough! I have decided, Kiso says. The retired emperor must be put down. This will be a warning for Yoritomo not to interfere. Now get the hell out of here and fight! In the next episode, the Asahi Shogun faces the retired emperor. In this battle of Shogun versus Emperor, who will prevail? And how will Yoritomo deal with this unexpected turn of events?